I've really noticed when it comes to survival, you really have to fight tooth and nail for it. For survival of anything. A lot of people have a very small definition of survival, and I did too, until I expanded it by studying Leo Gira's video on understanding survival, part 1 and 2, on his channel actualized.org. So, in case if this talk doesn't make too much sense to you, go watch that video. And with that, I want to talk about survival of the life that you want. Survival of your best life, survival of your loving self, survival of your higher self. What life has been teaching me recently is that if you really want a life where you're a high performer or whatever, or you want, if you want any result in life, it's a full frontal assault to actually get something you want. Like, reality is bombarding you with things left and right all the time. I remember in one of my deep trips I've had, I have one insight that came to me quite strongly was reality is competing for your attention at all times. And boy, is that the truth. It's almost like as soon as you become conscious, when you wake up in the morning, there's thoughts and patterns in your brain running, thoughts in your mind, and immediately you're like, hey, I'm gonna distract myself with this on my phone, or I have this to worry about, or I have this or whatever, and you're really subject to whatever programming you received in the last, however many years you've been on this planet, really. You're really completely victim to that. And what I really realized is that if you really want to become an elite, if you really want to become someone different, someone that's not going to become like everybody else, because think of it this way, right? It's not only to your parents, but to the people around you that you become, right? You'll always fail to listen to your parents, but you'll never fail to emulate. Well, I would say the same thing with all the people that you surround yourself with. You'll never fail to emulate them. And so if the people around you are not like giving their full effort in, putting their full spirit in things, well, shit, you're not going to really feel too obligated to do that much either. Now, are you? It's really sneaky this way because you really have to go quite against the grain and have your pattern really be like going against the grain. You think of people that have really mastered themselves. It's all about grounding yourself in that feeling of the suck, or the pain, or expanding yourself, going into your uncomfort zone, finding new ways to become more, where like your default is to go and do that because you understand so deeply in your mind that it's programmed in. What I want to suggest here to you today is that unless you're making an extreme explicit effort to completely program in whatever you want out of life, you're not going to get it at all, period. And if you're making a serious explicit effort, and even like for example, if you want to be a real outlier like Kobe Bryant, you're going to have to consider motivating yourself with such a persistent self-talk that you could see it as a psychosis. Where it's like, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be the best. Like, I am the best. I am the best. I am the best. Like, over and over and over and over and over again. I work the hardest. No one works harder than me. Or I'm the most focused. Or I spend the most time. Or I create the best work. Or this session is going to be great, or this show I'm going to be putting on is going to be the best they've ever seen in their entire lives. Like having that consistent mentality, or like I'm going to kill it, or I don't miss. I really like Wes Watson when he talks about one thing that I think Wes Watson massively overlooks in his mentality and being able to teach it to other people. Or I want to say maybe massively overlooks, but what I want to say is he doesn't really preach it, or maybe even realize. Who knows, right? I'm not in his mind. But one thing I want to put in here is that Wes Watson, he had long periods in his life where he was stuck in a cell, 24 hours a day or 23 hours a day, and he would just be alone with his thoughts. And so when they were on lockdown, where it was really had nothing to do or whatever, he literally it was just him and his mind. And what he decided to do was to rapidly program his mind with a serious savage self-talk. And it was like, watch this. Like, they can't break me. They can't break me. And then as you see today, that same momentum is still kicking, 6 years later outside the penitentiary. And really, there's a lot of wisdom to be gained from that. Really understanding the power of the mind, but really the power of the brain. Where using your mind, you can wire in thought patterns so well that your brain just does the work for you, and you're quite literally become a victim of your own programming. And one thing I want you to realize is that you are already a victim of your programming 100% right now. So why not just adjust that trajectory to a programming that leads to a life of excellence, a life of focus, a life fully lived, a life where you take the leap, take the step, take the challenge. Why not? If you really want to defend the survival of your best life, you're going to have to fight tooth and nail. You're going to have to say, fuck all that shit. Here's my one thing, and let's go with it. And I'm going to be the best at it. Because really, if you're not going to be the best at what you want, what you choose to do with life, why the fuck even start? How can you even get motivated? It's like, I want to be like a good musician, like not the best, but just a good one. Like, what if like you had like a mission? It's like, no, my music is gonna change people. It's gonna bring peace. It's going to help so many people. It's gonna save lives. I think about Bob Marley with his life purpose, where his music was so important to spread a message. And spread a message of love in a time with so much conflict and war. And to really have the courage to actually take on that ownership, take on that responsibility. And to choose to take on that responsibility every day. It's like, no. Yes, I am like a nobody right now. Right now, I'm an absolute nobody. But I'm taking the responsibility of the whole world suffering, and I am creating this partition in reality where I can give my gifts to the world the most, to raise the consciousness of the world, to help the world evolve. For me, that's the most meaningful thing, is to help the world evolve. Because really, what else is there to do than to evolve yourself and also evolve others? So, to close this up, think of the survival of your life, right? That's going to be competing with the survival of, survival of your best life is going to be competing with the survival of your worst life, the survival of your mediocre life, or the survival of an okay life, or a little bit average life. The best one, right? You're going to have to be competing in every single moment with every single thought. And really, to get to that point where you're making more votes towards the direction you want to go, that comes down to really allowing yourself to put your awareness onto each decision and to really sit with it and calculate it in your mind. Like, man, do I really want to accept the consequences of this decision? Even though it's small, every single thing you do is a vote and a small, tiny trajectory move towards a slightly different life, or maybe eventually to a radically different life, right? You change the trajectory of your life 1 degree, and farther down, they're going to be at a very different point. And you're doing this all the time. And so why not constantly reinforce yourself like, hey, I'm going to be on this path. I'm going to be on this path. I'm going to be on this path. I'm going to be in this path. Because if you don't do that, if you don't constantly reinforce it with a vision, with a goal, with a life purpose, you're absolutely fucked. Because reality is going to bombard you with survival challenge after survival challenge after survival challenge. What's going to really help you is every time you have a tough survival challenge, you recontextualize that as, this is my purgatory, this is my step to get there. I'm going through this for that. So you build this momentum with your life. Because if you don't really build a momentum with your life, man, it can be so easy to just wither away and not master anything, and life just starts to suck. See, if I didn't ground the last 5 years of my life in a plan, in a direction to shoot, man, I don't even know how I would deal with myself. Because there's been a lot of ups and downs in my life so far. And, relative to what I've experienced, I'm not saying I've had the hardest life, but I'm not saying I've had the easiest life either. I mean, it's all relative with every person. I've definitely been very privileged in many regards. For example, I live in Canada. I mean, there's nothing to complain about in a sense in that way, when there's people that are just literally just trying to live. And I also realize I'm disconnected from that. And I think if I reconnect with that understanding of how lucky I really am, that could help me massively reignite an appreciation for all that I do have. And so that's something on my list of things to do, to really reignite that gratitude. But going back to what I'm saying here, it is so vital, so important that you focus your mind again and 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 again. You get my point? Reminds me of a quote. Might be quoting the wrong person. Sylvester Stallone in a movie Rocky or something like that, where it's not about it's all about how hard you can get hit. It's not about how hard you can get hit, but I'm gonna butcher it like crazy. But life is more about how hard can you get hit and how many times can you get hit and keep standing back up, to keep on getting back on that horse. And that's, I think, really what separates the people that make it and don't. How much persistence do you have in each and every single moment of every single day to refocus yourself, to re-put in a whole nother huge amount of effort, to put in a whole nother huge amount of effort to fight yet another war with yourself, to love yourself once again, That's what really separates the people that create a beautiful life and people that don't. So, a little bit of food for thought about persistence here in this episode. So, with that, thanks for watching.